Hi, I'm Rigger, this is Your Right, and today I want to dive into just some weird little questions that, sort of popped up in my head. But before we do that, be sure to like the video if you like it, share the video if you think others would like it, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and subscribe if you want to see more. This is the first time I'm really doing a video like this that's just sort of a, hey, weird question I thought of, but, why not? We're currently on break, so if we're just gonna, talk it out, let's just talk it out. It's not, super relevant, it's not gonna come up, but we can just have a chat about it. Although one of them might actually happen, but we'll see. But let's start at the beginning. Number 1, can Nora neutralize Harriet? Yeah, and this is a semblance question. Because, okay, we all know that Harriet is sort of, she's very Flash-like, right? Her semblance allows her to run at super speed, and it leaves an electric trail and produces electricity over her body, right? But we all know that Rooster Teeth, lately, for some reason, especially when it came to RWBY Semblance, have been, trying to apply, we'll put in quotes, science to it. Oh no, there's an explanation to why these things happen. And they've always sort of done it a little bit. Because the one that comes to mind is Nora. Her semblance allows her to produce as well as channel electrical energy straight to her muscles, right? So that's how RWBY put it. And we don't see much of the producing bit, but people say it's sort of behind the scenes and just makes her generally stronger. That's fine. But the point is, she absorbs electricity and makes her stronger. So Harriet's semblance is said that she runs really fast and it leaves an electric trail, or at least that's all anyone can pass from it, right? They just know that bit. So if they're going to say science, in quotes, her body produces a big charge of electricity that fires through her body, making her reflexes much stronger, much quicker, as well as her body be able to move much faster. You're saying the electricity powers her, not in a pure strength way the way Nora does, but in a speed way. Now, we'll also put aside that in science, those things go together, right? You can run faster because you're stronger. Honestly, Nora should be able to run very, very fast, but whatever. We'll put it out of the question for the moment. All these super strong heroes who have super strength, that should count for their legs too, but whatever. We'll say in this case, it channels directly to her muscles. So, that raises this weird question that if in somehow Nora got a hold of Harriet, in a grapple, hugged her around the waist, held her, and Harriet tried to use her semblance to run out of it. So she activated her semblance, lightning shot, electricity shot through her body and around her, and she tried to run away. Could Nora activate her semblance, or does it automatically activate? Because when she got hit by lightning, at least when it unlocked, it automatically activated, but that brings up how semblances activate. Whole different thing. Would she be able to absorb the electrical energy flowing through Harriet at a quick enough rate that Harriet's semblance would be neutralized and she would not run faster, and it would instead charge up Nora? Because, on one hand, that fits the, science-y approach they've sort of taken for some of the semblances, or are trying to take, or have tried to take in the past. And, that might fit and be really interesting, but also it's very specific circumstances, how does it work? Because Nora would have to be touching her, so it would have to be a weird thing where she has a hold of her before it starts and either knows it's coming or it reacts instinctively when there's electricity around. Because we see when RWBY shoots Nora with electricity, it doesn't seem like she knew that was coming, but she absorbs it anyway. And when Hazel starts attacking her, we see her put her hand on him as if to maybe more efficiently collect his electricity, because it seems like she was doing it anyway, so maybe it doesn't need to be actively, activated for her to take things in. She just has to, be open to it, not actively trying to stop it. Because with the door, she actively tried to touch it, but what would happen if she tried to touch it, or she accidentally touched it and didn't know it was there, would she still absorb it? These are all really, because then the lightning again, the way it activated, but maybe that was just the one time because she needed it to survive. But then what about being shot? Because it didn't seem like she knew that was coming. You get the point. These things go round and round and round in circles, and it's just an interesting question. And then you have to talk about the rate, right? Because electricity moves really fast, right? So then you have to think, okay, what is the rate that she absorbs electricity? We know she can have a very high capacity because of what she drained from the door, which would have probably, killed anyone else. That's a huge capacity, but how fast can she take it in? Can she take it in faster than Harriet spreads it around her body, which should be almost an instant because that's how fast electricity travels. It's so hard. And then, is it different with dust electricity versus, naturally produced semblance electricity? It's so hard to know. But it is an interesting idea. I would like it if, Harriet was going to attack someone and Nora tackled him not tackle him to the ground, but tackle her around the waist, tried to hold her. She tried to run and suddenly it just didn't work. And then Nora was super powered and threw her off like a bridge or something. You get it? It would just be a really interesting, we hadn't thought of that, or it hadn't really come up, because the electricity trails from Harriet is just like I hate to use the word, but quirk, this also happens, or is it actually tied to it, because a lot of other people's little side things seem to be tied to how they work, like with RWBY, it's oh no, it breaks down to molecular structure, all that. Pick apart the science if you want. But if you're taking that approach that, the electricity there isn't just for show, it's part of how the system works, then it counts as electricity, and Nora can absorb it. Although don't question if Nora can absorb the electrical signals in anyone's body in general, because that means she could just kill all of you by touching you. That's a real thing. If she could absorb the electrical energy that runs through your body, especially through your brain, by touching the source, it means she could potentially grab you and you'd just die. So, yeah, those hugs, pretty deadly. Anyway, moving on. Number 2. Can Ren hide himself or others from Salem? Now you're thinking, that's really dumb, right? Well, no. Salem, when she went into the Grimm pool, went through a physical transformation. Not just her skin bleaching, not just her hair bleaching, her eyes go full red. And that is the way that we see Grimm, right? And her eyes glow red when she's using Grimm powers, but they are always red all the time. Now, there are people with naturally red eyes, Crow, but these are definitely changed due to her physical makeup because of what she did. That's not debatable, that's just the truth. But there comes a question out of that. Grimm don't see the way we see. And I've had people yell at me about this, right? It was when I questioned about the Seer Grimm seeing Emerald. And the things were, well, Grimm have eyes as well. They don't just see like that. Or the Seer Grimm special, because it's meant to see things, so it sees things differently. Or that, because Emerald's power specifically targets sensory inputs, it also counts for their sensory input. Therefore, if she wasn't invisible, just invisible to the Grimm, because she was blocking its emotional sensory input. Which, okay, yeah. I'm not saying it's completely wrong. I'm just saying, the I'm definitely right explanation is at least 3 versions of it. So, but that's neither here nor there. We'll put it aside. So the point is, if Salem took in Grimm traits and the power to control Grimm and became, as people say, Grimmified, did it change her senses? So, does she see people the way Grimm see people through their emotions? Because this would make a lot of sense when she knows when people are lying, knows when people are telling the truth, knows when people are scared, because she has the emotional sense that a Grimm does. Now, this could have been added to her, like an ability, or it could have replaced her old sensory input, because we know from Grimm, and from Ren using his semblance, when he does, he's literally invisible to them, right? So, when he faced the Nuclevi, it had 4 sets of eyes and still couldn't see things directly in front of it. They literally were invisible. And we see again in Volume 8, when he goes off that cliff, the thing is heading straight for him, the Flying Grimm, and he makes himself invisible and hopes, and it misses. It suddenly cannot see him. So, if now, when they're going onto the Grimm Whale, if they come across Salem, can Ren hide himself from her by masking their emotions and actually become invisible to her? And if not, can Salem sense they're around because of their emotions even without seeing them? And if she can Ren at least hide them from that because it's a Grimm trait? There's so many little things here. There's so many technicalities of if it replaced her sight, well, that would make her, sort of weaker. That would, that's a downgrade. That's not a power up. Yeah, but no one said the Grimm pool was, superhero toxic waste where it just makes you better and there's no side effects. There's no downside. What if she did have a downside? We've never seen her in a situation where she should be seeing someone that shouldn't be there. Does Emerald know this? Maybe presumably Emerald can hide from her, because if she can trick Grimm senses and she can trick just people's normal eyes, then she can trick both. Just one of these weird little things. There's no reason to assume Emerald can't sneak up on Salem, but it is interesting to think maybe others can't because she does have Grim senses as well. But then it's also interesting to think if the Grim senses replaced her senses, if someone like Ren and that can become invisible to her and hide others as well. And it makes Salem more deadly because if she does have those senses, she might be near impossible to sneak up on otherwise because she can feel you coming. Just an interesting idea. And 3, lastly, what are the bounds of a schnee summon? Because, okay, there have been lots of questions about the schnee semblance. It's weird, it's got too many features, it's got stuff that we've forgotten about, when was the last time you saw time dilation? It's just, it's a mess. It is a mess of a semblance that they've tried to alter and change and add things to. But, in essence, we have the summoning thing, right? So, the summoning thing as defined as enemies that pushed you past who you used to be and who you are now and watch them come to your side. Now, obviously, Grim and enemies you've had a hard time facing count for this, but the technicalities of that are interesting because you saw Weiss defeat the knight in her trailer and we've come to understand that knight was possessed by a geist, but when she summons it, it isn't the geist that comes back to help her, it's the full knight. So it doesn't actually matter what the technical creature was, it's what you fought. So that comes back to help her. And since then, all we've seen her summon are Grim, and the same for Winter. Winter does summon a bunch of birds, but I'm led to believe that they are probably also those little Nevermores, the type you saw Blake killing in Volume 2, which would make sense if she got attacked by a swarm of little birds at some point in her life, perhaps very young, and that stuck with her. But there's no bound saying it has to be Grim, it can be anything. Well, it's not defined as being just Grim, that's just what we see. So, you can summon back anyone you kill, like a person, maybe not anyone, but any big fight you had. So, if Winter had a fight to the death with somebody and won, and, by the skin of her teeth, and, really changed as a person, can she summon that person back? And if she can, what skills do they have? Because the knight seems to have quite good combat skills, but it can also use her semblance and summoning to aid its abilities. So if you brought back a huntsman, could they summoned huntsmen use their semblance? Assuming all these things drain, the summoner's aura, but that doesn't mean they can't do it. It's similar to what lots of people have talked about, and I've joked about. Can Weiss or Winter summon the whale if they kill it? It's huge, right? So maybe even if you killed it, it would be beyond the bounds of you able to summon it again because it's so massive that it would take all of your aura to make the summon happen. But what if you had Jean's help? Could you then summon it? What is the drain of a summon on someone who's already summoned it? Does it keep costing aura to keep it out, or does it just cost it to summon and then when it dies, it dies? These are questions that would all apply if you wanted to test these things. So, everyone that Winter has fought, none of them pushed her past who she was then, come now. We see her use Beowulfs and things like that, but we haven't seen her use people, but that doesn't mean she can't do it. So, what are the actual bounds of this semblance? And when they are summoned, some of them seem to still have their abilities, because the Manticore that she rides still fires a breath weapon at Cinder, so it still has that ability. So, could Weiss potentially then summon the Geist that wasn't the armor, but it was still beaten because it was controlling the armor, and then use that Geist ability to possess something else and fight with that, turning it into a physical thing that exists in the world, not built from magic ice or whatever, but it is controlled by the Geist, so it's much more defendable. So, there's so many weird questions around what summons can and can't do, because some of them still have their powers, or at least the ones we've seen. We've only seen them summon Grim, but nothing says it has to be Grim. There's a lot of weird questions, and then there's what summons being around and what they're doing taxes the summoner. How much aura does it take, and is it just summoning or maintaining? Is using their abilities count? Because then could you summon the whale? Does it actually cost more because it's bigger, or how does that work? Again, this is where you get science not science, but you start bringing math into it. You start bringing, we've got to quantify things. This is where things like Super Saiyan fell apart. Oh no, power levels scale like this, and we're in the millions, but we can do everyone to numbers, and this means they're stronger. That's where some of that starts falling apart and becoming annoying. But in theory, if you just take it on the base explanations and what they say is true, then you could be able to do some really weird stuff with this that probably won't go explore, but it is an interesting question. Because for those of you saying it has to be something that caused you to change who you are, well, what about the boar? The Borbatusk. It didn't cause Weiss to change. She had a revelation afterwards, but that was nothing to do with her battle. That just came first, but she can summon that. So, you know, maybe these victories don't have to be as impactful as they made them sound. Just have to be little victories. Because she struggled a little bit, but didn't change her as a person. Oh, and don't think that I wasn't building to the obvious conclusion to this. It doesn't have to be a Grimm because it's not defined as needing to be one. And things like Grimm, when they come back, still have their powers. Does this mean that if Winter were to kill Cinder or Penny or any of the maidens, that they could then summon them back, and their summon could have the equivalent of maiden powers? Because why not? Because what defines that? Because, well, she doesn't have maiden powers because that's like its own specific magical thing. Yeah, well, the Grimm Manticore doesn't have flame breath, but it has like her magic ice summon version of it that it spits. So could she summon Cinder and then do magic ice summon whatever that material is version of the powers that were used against her? Huh? Why not? Talk about weird, like, it's within the bounds of the rules set, or at least it seems to be. Anyway, just leave that one there. But, yeah. That'll be it for this video. Remember to like it if you like it, share if you think others would like it too, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and subscribe for more. Until next time, remember, no matter what goes wrong, it's never right to stab your friends in the back. Unless of course you need a quick summon and you want to bring them back for that. And my name is Rigger. Hope you have a wonderful day, and hope I did alright.